Karl Roberson versus Marvin Vettori is set to take place in the co-main event of UFC Fight Night Vegas, Jessica Eye versus Cynthia Calvillo this weekend. Still not used to saying the name of that main event, but even still, this is the co-main event, and to be honest with you, is this normally a co-main event worthy fight? No, but compared to this card, this is the most worthy co-main event. In my opinion, it actually could probably take the main event over Jessica Eye versus Cynthia Calvillo, because I know more people are interested by this fight than they are at the main event. Karl Roberson versus Marvin Vettori is a great fight, however. You've got Karl Roberson coming off a 2-fight win streak. Both guys have had rocky roads in the middleweight division so far, including Karl Roberson having a bit of a rocky road at light heavyweight as well, on short notice when he went up to fight Glover Teixeira. But recently, the pair of them have put together 2 great wins. Their losses haven't been too bad either, to be honest with you. Well, Marvin Vettori, we'll get into the prediction, okay? Marvin Vettori's going to win this fight. I am more convinced about that, unless I made a prediction video about this before, but let's start off with the updates on what's happened since the last fight was supposed to happen. Karl Roberson botched a weight cut. Really badly, so much so his body shut down and he had to be withdrawn from the fight, or he withdrew himself from the fight. I'm not saying a doctor had to step in, but the weight cut was so bad that him training for this long to get a fight pulled out the day of. That's how you know you messed up your weight cut. And Karl Roberson is a big guy for the middleweight division. So for him to botch a weight cut like this, it's only going to weigh the odds against him even more in the rematch. Or not the rematch, the rebooking of the fight. Because originally the odds were very close. The fight hasn't happened and the odds have changed. That's directly due to the weight cut, in my opinion. I think that Marvin Vettori is going to beat him. I thought that he was going to beat him before, but I thought, you know what, this is a really close fight. It could go either way. You know, Roberson as an underdog isn't even that bad of an underdog in this fight. But since then, Karl Roberson botching his weight cut and having to turn around only a few weeks later to fight Marvin Vettori, that's not going to go well. They're cutting weight again for this fight at middleweight. I don't like the sound of that for Karl Roberson. I think he's going to get beaten by Marvin Vettori by 3rd round TKO. Let's talk about the weaknesses and what both of them can exploit in each other. Karl Roberson, really great leg kicks. Really good leg kicks. Really technical combinations. He's a kickboxing style fighter. A really good kickboxer as well. He's decent on the feet. He fought Roman Kopylov, who is a great kickboxer himself, who's defeated a bunch of guys, a young Russian talent that was coming up, beating all of these old veterans with great records. Roman Kopylov was a savage, and Karl Roberson went over there and beat him and exposed a hole in Kopylov's game, which was the leg kicks. Someone who has a problem with leg kicks is Marvin Vettori. I've noticed this in his fights. I'm sure he has noticed it as well and is going to be working on that as a young, evolving fighter. However, that leg kick problem is there. Vettori sits very heavy on his lead leg and is a very boxing-orientated fighter. It works for him until it doesn't. Some guys have been able to show a few holes with the leg kick game. Omari Akhmedov was able to land a lot of leg kicks. Cesar Ferreira was even able to land a few leg kicks on Marvin Vettori. Even Andrew Sanchez had success with the leg kicks, but he couldn't really go for them because Marvin Vettori throws non-stop combinations coming forward. And when you're trying to throw leg kicks in that situation, you're going to end up stumbling backwards, which is exactly what Marvin Vettori wants you to do. Not to mention, not only is it risky to throw leg kicks against Vettori because of his forward pressure, but it would work, but Karl Roberson can't go backwards. I've noticed this in his fights. When he was going backwards against Roman Kopylov and when Roman Kopylov was coming forwards, Karl Roberson is very good at planting his feet, at throwing a bunch of feints, having range and setting up his nice slick one-shot combinations. I don't know why I said combinations and one shot. That literally defeats the purpose of a combination. But even still, single shots, Karl Roberson throws great leg kicks, great jabs, great shots. Can't go backwards. He doesn't like the pressure. I've seen that in his fights. Marvin Vettori loves the pressure. Marvin Vettori is a combination puncher that likes to push guys backwards against a cage. Karl Roberson's going to be trying to throw leg kicks with a guy who's looking to pressure him, and Roberson doesn't fight well going backwards. It seems like a whole direct correlation to really fuck over Karl Roberson's game plan here. I think that Marvin Vettori is going to get the job done with his pressure. The leg kick is something definitely to look out for, but as I said, there's a lot of stuff that Marvin Vettori does well that's really going to mess up Karl Roberson out of that game plan, but there's some other things that need to be taken into consideration. In my opinion, it takes a real level. You either have to be the level of striker of Israel Adesanya, which Karl Roberson is not, because Marvin Vettori went to a split decision loss to Israel Adesanya, even though it wasn't a split decision, in my opinion. I thought it was clear 2 rounds to 1. There was one round, so Vettori. And one of those rounds was pretty close as well. Even though I thought it went to Adesanya quite clearly, it was a competitive round, one of them. Karl Roberson is not Israel Adesanya level in striking. Okay? Marvin Vettori was able to handle Israel Adesanya a little bit on the feet and not get KO'd, which is more than we can say for other guys in the division that have been KO'd by Israel Adesanya. However, Marvin Vettori is a beast. What was my point again? Karl Roberson, Israel Adesanya, Vettori's former opponents. Yes, former opponents. There we go. Karl Roberson in the grappling is nowhere near the level of Marvin Vettori. That much can be said. And I know MMA math doesn't really work, but when you're fighting the same guy, I personally believe it does a little bit, especially when you come with similar styles. Marvin Vettori wants to keep it standing. Karl Roberson wants to keep it standing. Cesar Ferreira wants to get things to the ground and submit you. Marvin Vettori was able to stuff every single takedown, keep it on the feet, and beat up Cesar Ferreira for 3 rounds. Cesar Ferreira against Karl Roberson in a very similar time frame as well, by the way. This isn't like Cesar Ferreira at the start of his career and Cesar Ferreira at the end of his career. This is great MMA math. Algebra level MMA math. Cesar Ferreira dragged Roberson to the ground like he was nothing and submitted him. Compared to Vettori keeping it up for 3 rounds and not having a single problem with the grappling. Although Cesar Ferreira didn't shoot much because he was really beaten up, he did in the first round. That tells me a lot about the grappling. If Marvin Vettori loses on the feet, he has the option to try and get things to the ground. I don't think Karl Roberson has that same option, so that's another favour for Marvin Vettori here, if everything else wasn't enough already. Then you look at Karl Roberson's career. One thing I feel like you need to have to beat Marvin Vettori, this was my original point, fucking hell. One thing I think you need to have to beat Marvin Vettori is KO power. Omari Akhmedov is not a guy with a lot of KOs on his record, but one thing you can say about Omari Akhmedov is he has KO power. He really does, and he has a great chin as well. Marvin Vettori, when coming forward against Omari Akhmedov, could not bully and come forward and throw combinations the same way because Omari Akhmedov was loading up with great power and trying to land back, and he stopped Marvin Vettori in his tracks a few times. That's what I feel like you need to beat Marvin Vettori, and it's something that I haven't seen from Karl Roberson yet in his career. I know he beat Ryan Spann, but those were some weird elbows behind the ear in the clinch. I know we could draw something from that fight, but you know, that's 1 KO in his career out of his last, 8 fights that he's had, 10 fights that he's had. 1 KO. I know he's had more KOs, but still that Ryan Spann one might actually... No, the Ryan Spann fight is the only KO other than 1 more on his resume. I'm not willing to bet that he has the power to back Marvin Vettori up. I don't think he's going to have the power to get Marvin Vettori's respect. Karl Roberson doesn't have that. He just doesn't have the right game plan to beat Vettori here. Could he go out there and get the upset? Yes, because he's a really good fighter. He could throw the leg kick so many times and just land 3 of them in the early round, and that's enough to really affect the fight for the rest of the 15 minutes. That can happen. We saw this against Perez and Formiga. A couple leg kicks, it might be over. And that's at flyweight. So if Roberson can land a few of them early, I think he's going to be able to get the... Maybe affect Vettori in the later rounds and get a round or 2 away from him. I don't think that's going to happen. Vettori knows that that's what Roberson is going to try and do. He's known that for the last fight as well, and now he's got longer to prepare for it. Roberson just seems to have less avenues for success and less successful avenues for success as well. I'm going for Marvin Vettori. If the first prediction wasn't clear enough, the next one after a botched weight cut should be, as long, and this is a huge thing that I want to mention before I end this video, so long as Marvin Vettori doesn't get emotional. Because he was really angry at Karl Roberson, and it wasn't like a justifiable anger. I understand it was a cool video, and I'm behind Marvin Vettori. If you're going to pull out a day before the fight because you messed up your weight cut, it's not like Roberson got ill, or had an injury, or something happened out of his control. He wasn't disciplined enough, so he messed up his weight cut. That's why he couldn't fight, and I think Marvin Vettori knew that as well. So Marvin Vettori was angry at him. But it wasn't like an understandable anger. Karl Roberson wasn't standing there pushing him. Roberson didn't insult his mum or anything like that. Roberson wasn't mocking Vettori for not being able to fight him or anything like that. Vettori just had an outburst of anger. And I know Italians are known for their strong emotional levels. I don't mean to assume anything or stereotype a country, but come on. There was this invented for a reason. And that was to portray emotion and send emotion to your enemies. That's actually what the Italians do. They send the emotion into these fingers and they let it go. straight in their enemy's face. Marvin Vettori is an emotional guy. I hope he doesn't get over emotional here. However, looking back, he had a real lot of trash talking between him and Israel Adesanya, and although that wasn't his greatest performance, he did okay against Israel Adesanya. He really did, and he kept a level head, and he took him down, even though he could have been emotional and wanted to go for the finish. He took him down, realised that he was a little bit outclassed on the feet. That shows me that he's still thinking in a fight where he is emotional. I don't think the emotional thing is going to be a factor in this fight with Karl Roberson. I think he's going to get the job done, and I think he's going to TKO Roberson in the third round after eventually wearing Roberson down so much. Roberson's going to be sick of going backwards. Marvin Vettori is something that I wanted him to add to his game for a very long time, that I'm sure his gym is working on, is when he throws combinations when a guy is against a cage. He does go for the head a little bit too much. He's very good at it because he lands all of the shots to the head, but when a guy is shelling up and knows that you're going to throw a combination, you're not really going to KO them. I think Marvin Vettori is going to go to the head, and if he does do this, I think he's probably going to make top 5. If he does do this and make this change, which is such an obvious change that he should go for the head, back your opponent up against the cage like you do with your headshot combinations, then start ripping to the body. I think that Vettori's going to start ripping to the body because if I'm seeing it, his coaches are 100% seeing it in this fight. Roberson has a very high guard. He comes from a traditional Muay Thai background. I know he didn't have much of a career in Muay Thai or much of a successful career in Muay Thai either, but that's where he started, and that's where his style sort of had a foundation from. He has a very high guard. I think Vettori's going to back him up against a cage when he's trying to throw leg kicks, knock him off balance, send him backwards, land a few shots against the cage to the head, and then start ripping to the body. I think Vettori's going to win this fight by gassing out Roberson with body shots, eventually for a TKO in the third round. And the winner of this fight, in my opinion, deserves a fight against, who's that guy in the division? Ian Heinisch. Coming off a big win against Gerald Meerschaert, only a week ago as well, not even a week ago, a couple days ago. They're within a week of each other, which means they have a very similar schedule. Ian Heinisch versus the winner of this fight makes a lot of sense to me. Ian Heinisch recently stopped a 2-fight skid, now he's bounced back. That's not enough for me to jump him up the rank. That's not enough for me to jump him up the rankings, and if Vettori wins this fight, he's probably going to be number 15. Ian Heinisch versus Marvin Vettori after this one, if he does win, would make sense, or even if Roberson wins. Let's do Roberson versus Ian Heinisch as well, why the fuck not? If we're going to give Marvin Vettori a ranking for winning, and this is the Neil Magny situation, the Neil Magny paradox. If we're going to give Vettori a ranking for winning, like, we give guys ranking spots for beating Neil Magny, but Neil Magny beats these guys and doesn't get ranked. He might be ranked right now, or tomorrow. I could be wrong. But even still, if Marvin Vettori's going to win this one and get ranked, then give Roberson number 15 as well if he gets the jump over Marvin Vettori. That's what I want to see next, though. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Vettori by third round TKO. Click that button there. The Italian dream is real. He should change that to the Italian Stallion, in my opinion. It makes way more sense. Goodbye.